over the entire country, not because he wants to rule over the country, because Hashem wants him to rule. And now that he has support from all the 10 tribes, including Binyamin, as brought to him by who? By Avner. Now, in Perek, let's see what is the first thing David does as a melech over all of Israel. And we'll ask ourselves why. And you'll probably laugh for some months and say, why? Isn't it simple? Okay. Perek, Pasuk Aleph, Vayivo kol shiftei Yisrael el David Chavrona, Vayiru lemor, Hinenu atzmacha v'sachar. We read this last week in our last shiur. We're ready. We're for you. Whatever you want, we're ready to do. Gam etmol, gam shilshom, b'yot she'u melech aleinu, ata ita motziva mi et Yisrael. You've led us to war. You've brought us back from war. In the past, we know you are the leader. Vayomer Hashem lecha ta tireta mi et Yisrael v'ata tiyeh lenagid al Yisrael. And here's the prophecy that Israel is likened to sheep, and the leader is likened to a shepherd, and that's the title of David. What happens as a result after David being supported? Pasuk Gimel, Vayivoko zeknei Yisrael el HaMelech Chavrona, Vayichod lem HaMelech David brit b'Chavron lefnei Adonai, Vayimshechu et David lemelech HaYisrael. Here it is. This is the pasuk from where we're moving. He's now king over Israel after ruling how many years in Hebron? 7.5 years. David ruled in Hebron. And now we're told, Ben Shloshim Shana in verse 4, David b'mochol, Arbaim Shana Malach. That means, altogether, he rules 40 years, 33.5 in Yerushalaim, 7 and whatever in Hebron, sum total, 40 years. He starts at the age of 30. And he'll die at the age of 70. That's right. He'll die, as we learn in Kings 1, Sefer Menachem. There we learn about it. Let's go on now from Pasuk Yud, from verse 10. Vayelech HaMelech v'anashav Yerushalaim Ela Yevusi.
That's in the Divrei Hayim.
No, I'm still reading in verse 6 of chapter 5. Vayelech HaMelech v'anashav Yerushalaim Ela Yevusi Yoshev Haaretz. Vayomer leDavid lemor lo tavo hina. Don't come here. They're warning him, the Jebusites. Don't come here. Why not? Ki im esircha ivrim v'pischim lemor lo yavod David hina. David is warned. He's threatened. And we don't understand what it is this threat about. Okay? Verse number 6. Why is he warned? Who are the Jebusites? And why is he being told, unless you don't remove the blind and the lame? We have a lot of questions to answer. Number one, we briefly spoke about this in our last year. If I ask you why David is coming to Yerushalaim, you're going to say it's obvious. He wants to conquer what? Yerushalaim. But if I ask you why does he want to conquer Yerushalaim, you're going to say, come on, Menachem, let's get going, let's keep on learning. It's obvious why he wants to conquer Yerushalaim. But if I ask you the question, wasn't Yerushalaim conquered? Do you remember in Sefer Yoshua and thereafter in Sefer Shoftim, we learn about a capturing of Yerushalayim. So some commentaries say there's a upper side of Yerushalayim and a lower side. Or there's the periphery and there's the central area. But if I still ask you, why does David want to conquer Yerushalayim? Does David have a mesoret, a tradition, that Yerushalayim is the holy city? Does he have it? If he has, and it's obvious, what happened to Shaul? And what happened to the leaders before? How many years is the nation of Israel inside the land of Israel already? Close to 800 years. 440 years. No, you're right. 440 years the temple is built. You're right. So we're about 400 years in Eretz Yisrael. Boker Tov, what are you sleeping? Why don't you conquer Yerushalayim? Yeah, you, Yoshua. Yeah, you, Ehud ben Gerah. Yeru, Shaul, I didn't ask you. Yeru, Shmuel the prophet. Why aren't they conquering Yerushalaim? A good question? Yes or no?
Yes.
I heard these ideas by Rav Mati Franco, I want to tell you. Now, you want to say only David is a tzaddik, everyone else, boo. What are you gonna speak bad about the leaders of the Jewish people? That they didn't conquer Yerushalaim? What's going on? You don't want to do that. You want to say, that they tried to conquer, but they weren't successful? No. What about Shaul though? Shaul was king over all of Israel. So why didn't he capture? What is happening now that David captures Yerushalaim? Now, for those that studied all the book of Shmuel, let's talk about money. When does David purchase the Temple Mount? Where does it appear in the Sefer? At the end of Sefer Shmuel Bet. At the end of Sefer Shmuel Bet, he buys, with monies from everyone, from Arvana the Jebusite. Okay? Now, he's called Arvana HaMelech even. Let's look together in Divrei HaYamim, the book of Chronicles, where this purchase, David, is mentioned in Divrei HaYamim. Look at the end of your Tanakh, the book of Chronicles, Divrei HaYamim 1, chapter 21.
21? Chapter 21?
Chapter 21 in the book of Chronicles. It says the following.
Which pasuk?
In Psukim 24, 25, and on. In Chronicles. 1. Chapter 21. From verses 24, 25. Look at 25. Vayitain David le'ornan b'makom. He gives him money there. Sheklei zahav, golden shekels. Mishkal sheish meot. Here is the purchase. What does David do after the purchase? Vayiven sham David mizbeach l'Hashem. He's active. He built an altar for God. And what does he do on the altar? Vayal olotu shlamim. And he calls out to Hashem, Vayaneu ba'ish. God delivers an answer by bringing down fire from the sky. Al mizbach ola. Then there's a gap. In Pasuk 27, Vayomer Hashem lamalach. Vayashev charbo nidana. Ba'etahi, at that time, Birot David Kianosh, when David sees that God answers his prayer, Begorin in the threshing field of Ornana Yevusi, Vayizbach Sham, and he starts bringing sacrifices, correct? Umishkan Hashem asher asa Moshe b'midbar umizbach ola beiti b'bama b'givon v'lo yachol David lelachet lefanav lidrosh Elokim ki nivat mipnei cherev malach Hashem. The next pasuk is clear. Chapter 22, verse 1. Vayomer David, Zehu Beit Hashem HaElohim V'zeh Mizbach Le'olah Yisrael. What is Zehu? This is it. This is the what? The house of God. That means before that happened, was David sure this is the place? No. David wasn't sure. We can prove from this pasuk that if maybe at a tradition he wasn't sure. In other words, we want to understand why has it been that David is inactive and Shaul did not do it to know where the house of God is. What?
So we're not sure.
They were not sure. Only after David brought a korban and he received an answer from God, wow, this is the place of the Mikdash. This means, David, for all those called David in name of David HaMelech, that for all the generations we didn't have perfect knowledge where exactly the place of the temple where is to be. You probably know that this name Yerushalaim, is it mentioned in the Chumash whatsoever?
It's called Shalem. I mean, like
it's called Shalem. It's called the place that God will choose. But is the name Yerushalaim? No, it's not there. The Rambam brings this as a question in the Moreh Nevuchim, right? What's only mentioned in the Torah? Quote, Hamakom asher yivchar Hashem, the place that God will choose. Now, why do you think if this understanding is correct, that David was never sure where the place is, why do you think God made this plan, did not expose to have public knowledge? Why do you think Hashem doesn't want this to be public knowledge? If it would be public knowledge, what might the nations do? The nation, some of you know,
They could over and build one of their houses.
Exactly, they do that. In other words, maybe it could be one answer, very nice answer, that if the nations would know that this is the holiest place of God, they might mess it up. By the way, when we made the agreement with the Arabs in the Oslo Accords, and whose hands were the burial place of Yosef HaTzadik in the city of Shechem, what do you think the Arabs did to it? They burnt it several times in the city of Shechem. Okay? Now, let me ask you something. Had we known where the place would be over the time of history before David, what might be the problem? Why do you think Hashem doesn't even want us to know about it? What might it cause?
Like the tribes maybe fight about it.
Oh, beautiful idea. Two beautiful answers. The tribes might start doing competition. They might do competition to ask, I want or we want an inheritance here in Yerushalaim next to it. So therefore, we can suggest the following understanding. Do you know why Yerushalaim was not conquered fully until now? Because we didn't even know that that is exactly the city of the Mikdash. Now, let's go back and ask the fundamental question. Why is David taking his soldiers and administration and going to Yerushalaim? Why is the first act of David, the king of Israel, going to conquer Yerushalaim? Okay? So you should know, there are several answers we can say. Rabbeinu Bechayi, you heard of him? The author of the Duties of Our Heart, the Chovat HaLevavot. He wrote a commentary to the Chumash. He was in Spain. And he writes that you know what? David has a tradition like everyone else. Do you know where Akedat Yitzchak was? The binding of Yitzchak. Do you know where that happened? Mount Yerushalaim. Therefore, maybe David is looking to establish his capital in such a holy place, even though there are other holy places like Hebron, like Beit El. Okay, not because I live there, right? So it's not so simple. Maybe because the Akedah was there. Answer number two. The Radak, one of the great Rishonim, says the following. Zion, okay? There's a tradition that Zion is to be the capital for the king of all of Israel. And only when we have a king over all of Israel shall he go ahead and conquer it. This could be an answer for David. David now has support from everyone. So he's going to Yerushalaim not because of the Beit HaMikdash. He doesn't know where the holy place is supposed to be. But as far as the capital is concerned, there's a tradition, generation after generation, this way. Now, according to the Malbim, one of the great later commentators, he explains, David HaMelech, he's not to give partial advantage to his own tribe. That's called nepotism. David is not here to help out the tribe of Yehuda. David wants to become Melech on all of Israel. All of Israel. He's not a representative of the tribe of Yehuda that's now trying to control everyone else. Rather, David is a man of Klal Yisrael, the entire nation. Therefore, for him to change his office from the city of Hebron and bring his kingdom to Yerushalaim, it's not because Yerushalaim is the city of the Holy Temple. He doesn't know that yet. Rather, the Malbim says there's one city and one city only that connects two rival tribes. Which two rival tribes is it, and which city is it? Yehuda and Binyamin. And which city connects Yehuda and Binyamin? Yerushalaim. There's only one city. The tribe of Binyamin from the north, the tribe of Yehuda from the south are connected here in Yerushalayim. What do you think David is basically saying publicly when he wants to move his office to Yerushalayim and capture Yerushalayim and move his office there? He wants to say, I am Melech al Kol Yisrael, all of Israel. Now, do you know that most of Yerushalayim is in the hands of who? Binyamin. And only one small part is in the hands of Yehuda. Now, if you are from the tribe of Yehuda, you're afraid. I know this guy. He wants to get a job with David HaMelech. And I know you also. You also want to get a job with David HaMelech. You're probably mad at David that what? He's moving his office to where? To Yerushalayim, where most of Yerushalayim is in the hands of Binyamin. By the way, do you remember the son that later on rebels against David? Avshalom. When the rebellion of Avshalom is hampered, is diffused, do you remember? And then David is on the other side of the Jordan River. Who's going to bring him back up to Yerushalayim? There's a competition. Yehuda says, we're going to bring David back to Yerushalayim. He's ours. And what is Binyamin going to say? Mapito. He belongs to 10/12 of the nation, to us. In other words, for all generations, we've had trouble. People, whenever they were in office, leaders, Yoshua, Ehud ben Gera, Devorah, Shaul, where did they establish their offices? By nature in their tribal areas. David doesn't want to do this. David's natural place of support is Beit Lechem, Hebron, right? He doesn't want to do it. Most of Yerushalayim, we said, is Binyamin. And the city of David has, little of the tribe of Yehuda. Therefore, you might say that the leaders or supporters of David would prefer that David leave his office where? In Hebron. But now in Yerushalayim, they might be afraid. Who's going to get the jobs? The tribe of Binyamin. Does that bother David? Not for one moment. Why? I am Melech of who? All of Israel, Klal Yisrael. And not just Yehuda. Okay? Therefore, if right now you were to interview David HaMelech, would you please tell us what you believe in? What is your Ani Ma'amin? What do you believe in? David would take the microphone, here it is, and say, I believe that I am the king of Klal Yisrael. And that's why I'm ready to move my office to Yerushalayim. That's understanding number one. Now, what is this threat by the Jebusite, the Ivrim, the blind, and the Pischim, the lame? The Jebusites are mocking. They're pointing a finger down against David. There's the realm of the simple meaning, and then we'll get to the realm of the Midrash. The simple meaning right here is that the city of Yerushalayim is fortified with walls. You can't penetrate. You can't go in. Right? We're going to overcome you. That's what the Jebusites, the Yevusi, are saying. Even if I put on the wall lame soldiers and blind soldiers, you won't be able to win the war. Nah. He's mocking them. He's putting David down. Do you understand what's happening here? David will not succeed. The truth is, and that's the term, that's one meaning of the blind. And another meaning is, we'll fight to the end. Even if we only have what type of soldiers? The blind and the lame. That's another meaning of the pshat. According to this pshat, when we read and understand what happened, first, let's read the next pasuk. Is David successful? Verse 7. We're back in Sefer Shmuel. Go back to Sefer Shmuel. Verse 7. Vayilkod David at Mitzudat Zion. He does capture the fortress of Zion. In your book, it's written in the bestseller. We're back in Shmuel. Okay? Chapter 5, verse 7. Vayikod David at Mitzudat Zion. Here, David. That is the city of David. And then David says the following. Vayomer David in verse 8. Vayomer on that day. Kol makeh yevusi. Whoever smites the Jebusites. V'yigabat tzinor. We don't know what the word tzinor means. V'eta pischim. And whoever smites the pischim. V'eta ivrim. Whoever smites the blind and the what? The lame. Snuei nefesh David. They're the ones that are hated by nefesh David. Well, what will you get? Does it say what you're going to get? It doesn't say here. What's the prize? Well, here the prize is not stated. Where is it stated? Divrei Hayamim. Rashi brings this, that in Divrei Yamim, chapter 11, there the prize is whoever overcomes the Jebusites, he will become Rosh and a Sar. He'll become a leader and a minister. That's the prize. Now let's find out who did it. Who do you think was successful in this military campaign? Take a guess. No. David as a minister. David as a leader of the army. What's his name? Yoav. According to our pshat, Yoav dug under the wall, found a way to get inside, opened up the gates. That's right. Rashi brings this idea that, let me just say, maybe some of you heard, it's a famous Yerushalaim Gemara. Sometimes the Tanakh is poor in one place and rich in another place. Here, we're not told what the prize is. Where is it told to us? In Divrei Hayamim, in chapter 10. So that's what the Yerushalmi Gemara says. Why? Here, I don't know why it's this way. Here, we're not told what the prize is. There, in Divrei Hayamim, we are told. So, Mr. Hayes, Yoav finds a way to dig through underneath the fortified city of Yerushalaim, gets to the other side with apparently soldiers, gets to the gate, opens up to the gate. Who penetrates into the city of Zion? David's army, and they win the war. That's what's stated here. Okay? That's what's stated here. Now, why do we not just settle for this matter? Why does David himself repeat, whoever smites the Jebusites, and by the word, the tzinor here means the Migdal. Whoever conquers the tower, that's the Migdal, that's what the citadel. That's what Rashi says here as well. Why is David repeating, Al Kain Yomro, therefore they will say, Iver Pisech Lo Yavo Abayit? Why is David repeating? Why does he repeat it himself about this matter? So I want to share with you the following. There are those that explain, it's not that we did not conquer Yerushalaim until now, but we didn't want to conquer Yerushalaim. Why not? Because according to a midrashic understanding, the Jebusites are the descendants of the Plishtim. A midrashic understanding that these Jebusites are from the Plishtim.
They're named as one of the Kenad nations.
You're right. So there are two types of Jebusites are called to this. Now, do you remember Avram Avinu? He made an oath with Avimelech, the king of the Plishtim in Gerar. And what did he promise? That he won't conquer the land for several generations. Until now, the several generations have yet to pass. And that'll be the reason why we have to keep the oath. You hear me? The oath of Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu made an oath in the book of Bereshit, in the book of Genesis, to the Plishtim king. We're not going to what? Conquer the land of Israel. For so many generations. Until now, the leaders of Israel thought, it's not that we don't want to conquer Yerushalaim, but rather, David, we're not allowed. Because they believe that the oath that Avram Avinu took generations ago is still in effect. However, who knows that it's no longer in effect? Who knows that those generations have passed? David, HaMelech. And he realizes that right now the time is right. The time is right. What does the word Iver and Pisach stand for? The weakness. The weakness of the Jewish people. Why is lame and blind the weakness of the Jewish people. Do you remember Avram Avinu and Yitzchak Avinu? Avram Avinu, what was his weakness? No, not Avram Yitzchak. Yitzchak and Yaakov. Yitzchak, when it came to a time of issuing a bracha, what did happen to Yitzchak? Just at a very interesting point in life, when he has to make a decision to give a bracha either to Esav or Yaakov, he's blinded. So too Yaakov Avinu. When Yaakov Avinu is en route to the land of Israel, after 20 years being in Chutz La'aretz, where he has 4 wives and 11 boys and 1 girl, and there he meets up with who in a wrestling match? A ministerial angel of Esav. And what is the result of the fight between Yaakov and the angel? Yaakov Avinu becomes lame. What does it state? Quote, Vehu tzoleya al yorecho. And he is limping on his thighs. The nations, or the Jebusites, consider, they're putting up, like on the billboard, a picture of someone lame and someone blind. And they're saying about the Jewish people, this is your weakness. Your ancestors were lame, your ancestors were blind, and therefore you don't have the ability to conquer. In other words, the usage of these terms is in addition to mock, put down the Jewish people. You, David HaMelech, you come from your ancestors that were nothing. They were lame and they were blind. You don't have the ability to do so. And now, David has to make a decision. Ken, will he kill everyone? Will he not go to war? David knows that what happened to Yitzchak and what happened to Yaakov is God's will. But it doesn't mean that they're going to be permanently lame and permanently blind. And therefore, David, Snuei, it says the Snuei Nefesh David. There are a lot of people that hate David. David is hated by a lot. But David is also hated by certain Gentile nations that are pointing a finger negatively against us. That we come from weak people like Yitzchak and Yaakov. David doesn't listen. Yoav is the one that says, I'm going to do it. He digs under the city and he conquers the matter. Let's continue now in Pasuk Tet, verse 9. Vayeshev David b'mitzuda. As a result of winning the war in Yerushalaim, verse 9, David now dwells, he's now making what we call the capital city of his kingdom. He's sitting in the Mitzuda. What is the Mitzuda, gentlemen? A fortress. Number 1, it's high up. Yes. Number 2, it is fortified. Yes. So defensive. So he's sitting there living in now, and he's now preparing his kingdom to be there. Vayikra la Ir David. Would you please tell me why he's calling it the city of David? Does it sound like he's boasting? That he's saying, oh, I did this and I did that. Does it sound like that? Yes or no?
A little bit, yes. I mean, otherwise, why would
Beautiful. So therefore, we have 2 answers. Number 1, who conquered the city? I know the chief of staff did the work, but who gets credit in the end? The king. Whatever our officers are doing in the war, the king gets credit. So that's 1. It's really on the name of the king because he gets credit. Number 2, it could be that all of Israel is claiming. Vayikra la means Yisrael.
So
yes.
It doesn't really say that David named the city.
Oh, so these are 2 answers. You're right. You're right. These are 2 answers.
It was called.
He is calling. The nation is calling. Okay? Because a very historical, shall we call it, tradition is that whenever a nation conquers a land, they call it after the name of their leader. They call it the name of the end of the king. We have today, modern day age as well. The military victories are the name of the chief of staff or the president or the king. And number two, it could very well be that the nation wants to call it in the name of David. Number two, Vayiven David Saviv Mina Milo Vavaita. What is David building? Gentlemen, what is Milo? Milo comes from the word Lemale. What is he doing? He's filling up a low area with earth and stones in order to raise it up. Okay? And he's going to be building structures there. In other words, David could be doing land work in order to build perhaps his future palace. Okay? And it says, Mina Milo Vavaita. He's building a wall, making it higher, making it more fortified. That's the pshat. However, the Midrash says, the Midrash Rabbah in the book of Bereshit, David is now building the foundations of what will later be the Beit HaMikdash. In other words, this like contradicts what we said before, that David, but we don't know yet, let me say this, we don't know yet what's going to happen at the end of the book of Shmuel. When is it that David buys the Temple Mount? We don't have an order in time. So maybe this answer can still work well, meaning David buys the Temple Mount from Arvana the Jebusite. And then, it was very good, huh? Baruch Hashem. Now this side also. Chaim, this side as well. There you go. Seven.
He did 2 times here.
So in other words, it could be that he bought the Temple Mount, and now he has a tradition, and he's building foundations. Of course, who builds the actual Beit HaMikdash? Not David, but Shlomo, King Solomon, will build it. But right now, he's moving forward. He's moving forward. Let's go on. Bevakasha, Pasuk Yud. Vayelech, verse 10, Vayelech David haloch vegadol, Vashem Elohei Tzvaot imo. Time is going by. As time is going by, who's becoming more famous? Who's becoming well known? Who's becoming more wealthy? Who's getting more great honor? David, whatever he does with Torah and mitzvot, the nation and people, and he becomes so famous, so loved. He's so successful. And this is happening over years. He's becoming more famous. Who hears about it? Pasuk Yud Aleph, verse 11. Vayishlach Hiram melech Tzor malachim el David vatzei arazim v'charashei eitz v'charashei even kir vayivnu vayit leDavid. My dear friends, in northern Israel, further north than Carmel, we go what's in present-day Lebanon. Present-day Lebanon, some of you may know, is the inheritance of which tribe?
That's Zebulun, no? Asher?
Asher. The tribe of Asher, present-day Lebanon, and we go to the area of Tzor. Tzor in English, no. Tzor in English is Tyre, T-Y-R-E. Today it's a Lebanese coastal city on the coast of Lebanon. Okay? Tzor. Okay? You were thinking of Tzidon maybe.
No, it's like, I thought it's with a
okay.
above, and it's like Tzor, it's like a rock.
Ken, right. Now, let me ask you something. Why do you think this non-Jewish king is sending gifts? Before we answer why, let's understand what is he sending. Number one, Atzei Arazim. What's special in Lebanon?
Cedar trees.
Cedar trees. What's good about cedar trees?
You can build things.
They're good for construction. They're tall cedar trees, like the Lebanon cedars. Arzei Lebanon, that's one. Number two, what else does he send? Charashei eitz. He sends carpenters, people that know how to build from wood. Number three, what does he send? Charashei even kir. He's sending, what are they called? Masons, right, thank you. They're called people that know how to build out of stone. Even kir. Now, tell me, is it usual that a nation of the world comes to, oh, I love you, I want to help you, what's going on here? Why do you think it's happening? You have an answer? Is there a political interest?
Two answers. One answer could be They see that David is very powerful and they want to build an alliance.
Everyone wants to be a friend of the strong. David is strong. David is famous. David is wealthy. Everyone wants to be a friend. That's a political interest. Number two.
Second answer could be that they want to spy on the land.
Not to be trusted. Okay. The Dat Mikrav, the Masada of Cook, explains that David has fought the enemies of the king of Tzur, and that is the Plishtim. The Plishtim, ever since Avram Avinu's time, have been very strong military presence in the Middle East. They've been problematic for hundreds of years to the Jewish people. None of us, of the leaders of the Jewish people, ever to been putting them down. Who is putting them down? David. Tzur is happy that David is fighting and beating the Plishtim. So if they're the enemies of Tzur, they're happy. Gentlemen, we'll get to the understanding this conclusion because of the Hashem we continue tomorrow. Shalom.